So hi guys, today um we're going to tackle the chapter 11, build a entitled Build a Small Network. So after this, so we have considered the services that a data network can provide to the human network. So I'm going to examine the features of which the layer of the OSI model and operation of TCP and IP protocols and look in the details of Ethernet. Ethernet. I'll Ethernet, a universe LAN technology. The next step is to learn how to assemble these elements together in a function network that can be maintained. So let's proceed. So we have here the device selection for small network. So the device selection for small network. So we have the cost. So the cost of a switch or router is to determined by its capacity of features. So the device capacity includes the numbers and types of port available and the backplane speed. So the other factor that impact the cost are network management capabilities, embedded security technologies, and optional advanced switching technologies. So for the next one, we have the speed and types of port interfaces. So in choosing the number and type of ports on a router or switch in a critical decision, so newer computers have built-in 1 GB and ICs, 10 GB and ICs are already included with some workstation and server. So for the expandability, so networking devices come in both fixed and modular physical configuration. So, fixed configuration has specific number and type of ports or interfaces. So, for the operating system, it is depending on version of operating system. So, a network device can support certain features and services, so such as security, quality of service or the QoS, VoIP or the over IP, layer 2 switching, network addressing transmission or the NAT, dynamic host configuration protocol or the DHCP. So there are different types of devices that will factor into the IP design. So these are the end device for user, servers and peripherals, hosts that are accessible from the internet and intermediary devices. So as you can see in this, we have the so for the local, it will so as you can see in this department, so if for the sale, it's only um specific device only. It will so as you can see, we have the West Office, East Office. So that's the IP addressing for small network. So for the small network, and then we have the redundancy to a data center. So the redundancy for a data center, we have the data center. So if one server fails, another in there to handle customer request. So the next one we have the link. So the link, if the link to the one switch fails, the link to the second switch is still available. the switches. So for the switches, it's redundant switches are present to avoid a switching failure. So for the last one, the router. So router redundancy can help to ensure that application transaction received from external traffic can be handled in the event of router or route failure. So So there are two forms of software programs or process that provide access to the network. So which is the network application and application layer services. So the network application, so it is application of a software programs used to communicate over the network. So some end user applications are network aware. So meaning that they implement application layer protocol and are able to communicate directly with the lower layers of the protocol stack. And for the application layer service, so other programs may need the assistance of application layer services to use the network's spooling. So, use the network resources like file transfer to pri- pri- um, file transfer or network print spooling. So, these networks protocols comprise the fundamental toolset of a network professional. So each of these network protocols defined. So as you can see in this, it has the process on either end of application sessions. Second one, types of messages, syntax of messages, meaning of informational fields, and um, how messages are sent and the expected response, and the last one, interaction with the next lower layer. So as you can see in this, we have the um, DNS or the domain name server. So domain name server, service that provides the IP address of a website or domain name so host can connect to it. And the SSH server. So SSH server servers that allows the administrator to log in to a host from a network locations and control the host as though they were logged in logically. For the email server, so email server it's used to send email messages from client to server over the network. The next one is the dynamic host configuration or the DHCP. So service that assign an IP address, a subnet mask, default gateway, and other information to client. And then the web server. So it is the used to transfer informations between the client and the server. So next one is the FTP server or the file transfer protocol. So it is service that allows for download and upload the files between client and the server. So we have here the infrastructure. So to support the existing and proposed real-time application, the infrastructure must accommodate the characteristic of each type of traffic. So the network designer must determine whether the existing switches and cabling can support the traffic that will added to the network. So the VoIP, so device convert analog into digital packet. So this device could be an analog telephone adapter or the ATA that is attached between a traditional analog phone and the Ethernet switch. So the IP telephony, so in IP telephony, the IP phone itself, it's perform voice to IP conversion. So voice-enabled routers are not required within a network with an integrated IP telephony solution. So IP phones use as dedicated server for call control and signaling. So for the real-time application, to transport streaming media effectively, the network must be able to support applications that require delay-sensitive delivery, real-time transport protocol or the RTP, and real-time transport control protocol or the RTCP. So the two protocols that support these requirements, RTP and the RTCP, enables controls and scalability of the network resources by allowing quality of service or the QoS mechanism to be incorporated. So scale to scale a network, several elements are required, which is the network documentation. So the network documentation is a physical and logical topology. And the next one is device inventory. So it is list of devices that use or comprise the network. The third one is the budget, which is itemized IT budget, including fiscal year equipment purchasing budget. For the last one is the traffic analysis, which is protocols, applications, and servers. Their respective traffic requirements should be documented. So, to determine traffic flow patterns, it is important to capture traffic during peak utilization times to get a good representation of different traffic types and perform the capture on different network segment. So, some traffic will be local to a particular segment. So, so these are the snapshot typically included information so such as OS and OS version, so network applications, CPU utilizations, drive utilizations, and RAM utilizations. So we have the types of threats. So we have the information thief, data loss and manipulation, identity thief, and disruption of service. So for the information thief, so this is a breaking into computer to obtain confidential informations. So information can be used or sold for various purposes. For example, is stealing an organization proprietary information such as research and development information. And for the data loss, so this is breaking into computer to destroy or alter data records. So for example of the data loss is sending a virus that reformats a computer's hardware. So example is data for the data manipulations. It's breaking into record system to change information such as the price of an item. So the next one is the identity thief. So it is a form of information theft where personal information is stolen for the purpose of taking over someone's identity. So using this information, an individual can obtain legal documents. So apply for credit and make an unauthorized or online purchases. So it identity thief is growing problem costing billions of dollars per year. So for the next one is this the disruption of service. So this is preventing legitimate user from accessing services to which they should be entitled. So example of denial of service or the DOS is attack of service. So network devices or network communication links. So we have the physical security. So physical security. So there are four classes of physical threats, which are the hardware threats. So the hardware threats, it's physical damage to server, routers, switches, cabling plant, and workstations. For the environmental threats, it is a temperature extreme, which it's either too cold or too hot, or humidity extreme, so it's either too wet or too dry. For the electrical threats, it's voltage spikes, insufficient supply voltage, which is example brownouts, unconditioned power or noise, and total power loss. So for maintenance threats, it is poor handling of key electrical components, so electrostatic discharge, lack of critical spare parts, for cabling, and for labeling. So there are three primary vulnerabilities or weaknesses. So it is the technological configuration security policy. So types of malware. So the types of malware, we have the viruses. So a computer virus is a type of malware that propagates or by inserting a copy of itself into and becoming part of another program. So for the worms, computer worms are similar to viruses. So in that they replicate functional copies of themselves and then cause the same type of damage. So for the Trojan horses, so a Trojan horse is another type of malware named after the wooden horse the Greek used to infiltrate Troy. So it is a harmful piece of software that looks legitimate. So so user are typically tricked into loading and executing it on their system. So after it is activated, it can archive any numbers of attacks on the host, from irritating the user, popping windows, or changing desktop, to damaging the host, deleting files, stealing data, or activating and spreading other malware such as viruses. So network attacks can be classified into three major categories. The reconnaissance attacks, so it is the discovery and mapping of system, services, or vulnerabilities. And the access attacks, the unauthorized manipulation of data, system access or user privilege. And the denial of service, so the disabling of corruption of network system or services. So um, access attacks can be classified into four types, which is the password attacks, trust exploitations, fourth redirections, man in the middle. So the denial of service attacks, or the denial of service or the DOS attacks are the most publicized from form of attacks and also among the most difficult to eliminate. So it is the most difficult to eliminate and publicized form of attack. So, authentication, authorization, and accounting. So, it is a triple A network security services. It provides the primary framework to set up access control on network devices. So, AAA is a way to control who is permitted to access a network, what they can do while they are there, and what action they perform while accessing the network. So it's the authenticate, authorize, and accounting. We have the firewall. So firewall is one of the most effective security tools available for protecting users from external threats. So firewall products use um, various techniques for determining what is permitted or denied access to a network. So these techniques are the packet filtering, which prevent or allows access based on IP or MAC addresses. Application filtering, so it prevents or allows access by a specific application based on port numbers. URL filtering prevents on or allows access to websites based on specific URLs or keywords. And the stateful packets infection, or the SPI, incoming packets must be legitimate response to request from internal host. So the endpoint security. So an endpoint or a host is an individual computer system or device that acts as network client. So common endpoint are laptop, desktop, servers, smartphones, and tablet. So the most common indicators are the signs that you see in the picture. So the first one, it indicates a receipt of an ICMP echo reply message. So that one, it's indicate a time expired while waiting for an ICMP echo um reply message. And then for the U, it's an ICMP unreachable message was received. So some of the more popular show commands are the show running config, show interfaces, show ARP, show IP route, show protocols, and show version. So the CDP provides the following information about each CDP neighbor device. So it has the device identifier. So for example, the configure host name of switch and the address list up to one network layer address for each protocol supported, the identifier, the name of local and remote form of the port in the form of ASCII character string such as Path Ethernet 00, capabilities list, for example, whether this device is router or switch, platform, the hardware platform of the device, for example, is Cisco 1841 series router. So that's all for the chapter 11. Um, so for the chapter 11 entitled Build a Small Network. So I hope you guys learn in chapter 11 and in this chapter, and thank you guys again for watching.